Hi, welcome to the training. My name is Singh, and today I'll be going over the Blackjack Playtracer software. I built this back in the early 2000, I believe, probably about 2003, 2004. So what this software does is it helps you analyze the players, blackjack players' plays, and it calculates the count, the true count as well. So before we get into the application, I wanted to show you this here. In the older days, the way that the surveillance department or table games would count down a player and analyze the player, blackjack player, to see if they are a card counter or an advantage player. We use a form similar to this here, and this form is also called a strip sheet. So what this does is where you make your inputs here. You'll input the cards here, and you input the wager. You can calculate the running count also, and then you have to analyze is it a win, loss, or push, and then you will put the your information up here, such as the date, time, table number, spots the player is at, area, the evaluator, and etc. Okay, so we'll use this to run down the player to see if that player is a card counter, if they're counting cards, or if they're tracking tens, or they're tracking aces, and etc. And one of the main count system, which is a balanced count system, is the plus and minus count system. So we'll be covering that today in the applications. So one of the tedious thing is when we're manually using this sheet, which in surveillance I have used this on many occasions to run down players and to analyze their play. It does take some time. Okay, you have to watch it. You have to watch the player. You have to input the cards, and many times you have to actually save the footage and then rewind the footage to make sure you input in all the cards correctly. Okay, so I built this software to help make the process easier. So it's very similar. You'll put in your information up here, okay, and you'll input your cards in here. Now the way to there are directions here where you can go through some of the analyses and stuff, and we'll go through here and we can see some of these directions here. Okay, down towards the end here. Okay, so I'll go to the input here. So for example, the way this works is you'll have the rounds, which are on the left side here. You'll make your inputs on the column here, and then you input in the wagers here. Okay, and there is a column here that is the override column, so you can input in W, L, or P, win, loss, push. Okay, and that's to override the automatic calculating analysis that the software automatically does for you. Okay, so for example, this spot here, I'm tracking round number 1 here. Okay, it has 7 spots. Okay, and I only have one player here, so you can see that the player received a 2 and a 9. Okay, and the wager is $50, and we'll put that there. Okay, so there's a lot of guidelines that you have to follow. For example, aces, if you look here where my cursor is highlighting, aces are inputted as A, capital A, or lowercase a. All 10 values are inputted as X. Okay, all other card values is just their value. You input their value in there. Okay, and we'll go down here and $100 and so forth. Okay, so for example, if this person here, let's say spot 2, they receive a jack and a queen. Okay, you would just put XX. Okay, because the values of the jacks, the queen, kings, and the 10, they're all valued as 10 cards in blackjack. Okay, the ace, if a person received, let's say the spot number 3 here, this person received an ace and let's say a jack, it'll be AX. Okay, so this format is the format that in which you should input these in. Okay, so I'm gonna delete these fields here. Another thing to remember is, for example, is spot 1 received it. Let's say spot 1 received the 2 8s. Okay, and they decided to split those 2 aces. Okay, so for each spot, it allows the user to split the hands into 4 hands. Okay, that is the limitation there. Okay, so if this person received it, since spot number 2 here received 2 8s, and they decide to split, this is how I would input it in, and then the new card that person received is, let me see, a 3 here, and let's say a queen, we'll input that as an X. Okay, if they received another 8 and they decide to split that, we will input it in this way. Okay, and then this hand received a 2, and say this hand received a 7. If they take a hit card for this hand, and let's say they received it a 5, and this split hand they received it an ace, and then this hand here received it an X. Okay, so under each spot here, the player is allowed to split 4 times, or actually 3 times, for a total of 4 hands. Okay, so that's how you would input the cards inside these fields here. Okay, if the player received, let's say spot 3 here received it the initial value of a 4 and a 7. Okay, and they take a hit card, we'll put in a, let's say, a 8. Okay, and they stop there. Okay, so this format is the format on how you should input the different types of cards that each player gets. Okay, now this is for round number 1 here. Okay, so round 1, I only have 1 player, wager $50. Okay, now if, for example, I'll go back here a little bit here. If, let's say, for example, spot 2 here, okay, and they received the 2 8s and their initial wager was $20, I will put $20 here. Okay, when they split that hand and they get new values for their cards here, they added more wagers to this. Okay, alright, so that's how you would input them. Okay, I'm gonna clear out these fields here. So this is for round 1 here. Okay, if I scroll down a little bit, at the end of round 1, the dealer's cards are inputted here. Okay, and then we'll go to the next one here, round number 2. Okay, and we'll input the cards and the wagers. Okay, if this person you want to override it, the win, loss, or push, you can input it in here as well. Okay, other than that, the application will automatically calculate that for you when you go to the win ratio analyses and the graphs and charts. Okay, so if I scroll down all the way to the end, I'll grab my scroll bar here, I'll scroll all the way to the end here. Once you reach the end here, you'll see that for one sheet here, it allows you to count or to track up to 40 rounds. Okay, before the the dealer reshuffles the cards. Okay, so my input here, I'm telling my the software that we're playing off of a 6-deck shoe. Okay, so if you're tracking more than let's say more than 40 hands, you would create and copy and save this file separately. So this entire file here, you would save it as play 1 and then start a brand new one, make your inputs here, okay, and then begin again, okay, with another shoe game. Okay, so for each shoe you want to use a different sheet. Okay, so you would save this entire file here. The application will analyze only those 40 rounds there. Okay, so here I already have some sample data here. Okay, and we have a person who is playing on just spot 1 here. Okay, now you can track more than one player as well. Okay, there are 7 spots available. Okay, the second tab here is the printable tab. Okay, so for example, if your company wants to print, you can print this out and manually fill these spots in. Okay, as you can see, here it is. Okay, and it'll just go all the way to 40 rounds too. Okay, so the input tab here is where you will make your track your cards and the wager. Okay, if you go to the analysis 1 here, okay, the analysis 1 is where it calculates all the plays. So for example, if we go back to the input sheet here, spot 1 has a 2 and 9. They wager $50. Let's go to the analysis here. Spot 1, round 1, spot 1 here has a 2 and a 9. Hand total is 11. They wager $50. Okay, the play was a loss. The running count is 1 or +1. Okay, if I scroll down here, you see the dealer here has a blackjack, an ace, and an X, or a 10. Okay, for a total of 21. So the dealer wins, player loses. Okay, true count is on the next column here after the running count. Number of cards played, 10 counts. 10 evaluation is rich in tens. Ace count and ace evaluation is rich. Okay, I'll go down here a little bit more here. Okay, on the dealers, after the dealer received their cards, you can also see the numbers here as well. Okay, number of cards plays 4. You see the running count is now -1. Okay, 10 counts 1, still rich. Ace count 1, poor. Okay, so if we go down here towards the middle of it here, let me go down here a little bit. Let's go down to round 40, round 21 here. Okay, you'll see that from here, this hand is a push. We have someone playing that spot 2 now also. Okay, then we see the 7 and the ace. It could be the same player. We document that up in the up in this area up here. Okay, go back to my analyses here. Okay, they wager $100. This is their hand total. They have a 20 and 18 versus the dealer's 20 down here. Okay, this is a push. This is a loss. Running count is 1. Running count back to 0. True counts. Number of cards played. Okay, remember on this one we're playing from a 6-deck shoe game. Okay, normal, 10 evaluation, normal. Rich and ace, rich and ace. Okay, so rich means that the ratio of aces to the number of cards it's not balanced, where there's still a lot of aces left. And if you look at the 10 here, and the 10 counts or 10 cards is normal. Okay, so if it's rich, there's a lot of 10s, okay, left in the deck. Okay, so if we go down here a little bit more here, you can see round 25 here, spot 1 here has 2 10s. Okay, hand total is 20, wager $200. Okay, spot 2 has a 7 and a 6, 7 and a 9 here, hand total is 16. Okay, and let me go down here. Dealer here, okay, has a 2 and 8, took a hit card for a 10, has a 20. Okay, it's a push. 20 versus the spot 1 is a push, and versus 16 is a loss. Okay, running count is now in the minus. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the running count or the true count, you can download our count charts, and where it shows you the positive zone, the negative zone, and the neutral zone, so you can understand what these the running count and the true counts are analyzed and used for. Okay, I'm gonna skip over to the, and again you can print this if you like. We're gonna go to the win ratio here. Okay, now on the win ratio tab here, what the software does is it calculates the win ratio. Okay, so for example, it pulls over the data that we inputted here. Okay, players analysis. Okay, for spot 1, they played this person here played 35 hands, won 13, lost 15, pushed 7, busted 2. Okay, total wagers $8,200. Win amount is $2,750. They lost $2,850. Pushed it $2,600. Okay, so win ratio is 33%, loss ratio is 34%, push 31%. Okay, this is based off the wagers. Okay, based off the hands, it's here. Okay, winning ratio and loss, and you have the push and then the bust ratio. Okay, this is extremely important because one of the things you'll have to understand if you are running or analyzing a blackjack play is there are times where a player, and I've had to do this many times over the years, back in the surveillance days, as a surveillance agent running down players, is you want to look at the dealer's play as well. Okay, to determine why a player is winning. Sometimes it really is where the player's not card counting, they're not tracking aces or tens, but they're winning. And table games wants to know why this person just walked away from the blackjack table with $20,000. Okay, as the surveillance agent, or we call it car master in the surveillance department, is the person that analyzes the blackjack players, is where we track the dealers. And if you look at the dealers' win ratios, it tells you a lot. Okay, so you can see here the dealer played 32 hands, won 30, lost 21, push 8, bust 7. Okay, so in one example that I can kind of give to you or explain to you is where we had a player that was winning, and that player wasn't card counting, but table game wanted to know why this player was winning. They walked off the table with probably about $10,000 or $15,000 in in a few hours. Well, when we ran down that player, we noticed that the dealer's bust ratio was extremely high. Okay, and it does happen where the bust ratio, or the bust ratio here, was extremely high. It was 80%. The dealer was just busting their hand. Okay, rolling back the video footage, yeah, every bust hand was legitimate. The dealer wasn't purposely busting their hand. They were just getting bust hands, and their bust ratio was extremely high. If their bust ratio is extremely high, the player's win ratio is going to increase. Okay, so that explains why these players on this particular day were winning, because the dealer's bust ratio was extremely high. It was in the 60 to 80% range, and it was extremely high, and the players were winning. And when you analyze blackjack players, this is one of the important points that you have to remember on why, the whys and how of why a player is winning and how they're winning. Are they using a count system, an advantage system, a betting strategy, or is it simply because the dealer's bust ratio is just extremely high? Okay, so that's where these bust ratio, push, loss, and win ratio are extremely important to analyze. Okay, so when we were in the older days, when we were using the strip sheet here, you can see the complications here. It's very tedious to put down all the cards here, and then wagers, and then manually calculate the counts, win, loss, and push, and then manually calculate the winning ratios and everything else. So it takes a lot of time. So that's one of the reasons why this software was developed, because it automatically does all of these calculations for you based on your inputs. Okay, and it evaluates all 7 spots. Okay, and it gives you all the percentages here, so you can look at that and make a determination on why this person is winning. Okay, table analysis. Okay, now table analysis is where it combines the dealers and players. Okay, so you have where 87 hands were played. Okay, winnings were the 51, losses, push, bust. Okay, total amount played combined. Okay, player win, player loss. Okay, so if you look at this here, all the players they actually won less than what they lost. So it's a plus for the blackjack table. Okay, and of course it also has the win ratio, loss, push, and hand ratios as well. Okay, so this is what and then the bust ratio is. My sheet is pushed over to the second page. If you adjust the print margin, it'll bring that over, so when you print, it'll be on one page. Okay, and on the second page, it clarifies the analysis of how these calculations are occurring. So it'll give you a lot of the explanation over here, so you can read through this. Okay, let's take a look at the graphs here. Okay, so when you're looking at numbers here, okay, you have to actually kind of dig a little deeper into how these numbers arrive, or how they're tally, and why they are the way they are. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, it's very hard to tell if this player is a card counter. Okay, but if I go to the graphs, the graphs gives you a different perspective, and it's actually a lot easier to read. Okay, and to look at and to analyze quickly. Okay, So on the first graph here, we have two graphs. We have graphs and then graph 2. Okay, graph 2 just is a little bit different design, more modern design. The original graph that was designed was this dot graph here. Okay, this one was implemented later on. I think it was 2010 or 2015, closer to 2020 if I remember. Okay, so on the original graph here, you'll see that we'll look at spot number 1 here. Okay, spot number 1, and then it has the running count, true counts. Okay, scroll down a little bit more, it'll be spot number 2, and running count and true count. Okay, so this maps out all the hands that spot number 1 had, and then spot number 2, and then it goes all the way up to spot number 7. Okay, scroll down all the way here so we can see spot number 7. Okay, let's go back to spot number 1. That's the one we want to look at. So for spot number 1, okay, the rounds are listed below, and then the wagers are listed on the y-axis. Okay, so wagers on the left, and on the bottom is the rounds. So for round 1, low wager. Okay, 2, low wager. But all of a suddenly in round 23, this player here on spot number 1 increased their wager to $2,000 now. Okay, dropped it right back down. Round 31 here, increased the wager again to $2,000 for 2 hands, and then dropped it right back down. Okay, when you look at the frequency of how a player wagers, they have a flat bet, and then all suddenly they're increasing their wager, and then all suddenly they drop their wager again. Okay, that, and the terminology that surveillance uses is called fluctuation. Okay, so there's a lot of there's quite a few noticeable fluctuation in the wagering pattern for spot number 1 here. Okay, now we compare that to the wagering to the running count chart. You can see that there are some similarities here. Okay, so for example, the running count, we start off with 0 in the middle here. Okay, rounds on the bottom. Okay, so from here you have round 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Then from the running count here, if it's a positive count, it goes up, and then if it's a negative count, the chart goes down. Okay, so here you can see the up to the number 10 round here. You can see that on round 1 starts at 0, we're dropping. Okay, count is at past -5 here. Okay, which is beyond the negative zone. Okay, so if you download our zone guide, plus and minus zone guide, you'll understand that from 0 to +3 and -3, that is called the neutral zone. Okay, anything above +3 and higher is the positive zone, and that's where the blackjack game favors the players. Okay, so you can tell here that as the count increases here during the round 23 here, you can see that round 23 the player also increased their wager. Similar thing happened during round 32 and 33 over here. Count raised it, player also raised their wagers. Okay, so that is a very clear indicators that this person is tracking the count. Okay, and they are betting to the count. As the count increases, which means that the game is going to favor the player increased their wagers. But when the count goes back down, the player wager also goes back down. When the count goes up again, player increased their wager again. Okay, so this is a great indicator that this player is tracking the running count. I included the true count as well. Okay, so if you don't know what the true count is, the true count is actually more accurate because it adjusts for how many decks are left inside the shoe. Okay, so if there's a lot of cards that are left in the shoe, let's say the true count at the beginning of the game with a full shoe, 6 decks inside the shoe. If you're tracking the true count, you'll understand that the accuracy is not good when it is a full shoe game. Okay, if you're playing with the 6 deck shoe, your accuracy for the true count becomes more accurate as there are less cards inside the shoe. Okay, so you'll learn that in our other training program, my other training program, which is the advanced card counting. It will explain the true count for you, but the true count is very similar to the running count as well. Okay, so you can see where the true count is extremely high here, above 8 here. Okay, and likewise the player on spot 1 here increased their wager as well. Okay, so we'll go down to spot number 2 here. Okay, spot number 2 here, if you look, they didn't make any wagers at all. Okay, it's just a flat line right across. Okay, the counts are the same based on the cards. Okay, running count and true counts will be the same all throughout this for those 40 hands. Okay, you can see at spot 3 nothing's happening. Okay, this is very valuable when you're analyzing blackjack players, especially when we're talking about team play. If there's a team, a card counting team, that are sitting at the same table and they are sitting on different spots, playing on different spots, you can look at this and see if the other player, if they're playing 2 spots, that's fine, but you can see if their betting pattern is also the same as the running count and the true count as well. Okay, so you analyze not just one player on, let's say in this example just spot 1, you can analyze all 7 players on that blackjack table. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next tab here, which is graph 2. Okay, graph 2 just shows you a more modern look on the charts. Okay, so if you can see here, is very similar to the other ones. Rounds on the bottom, wagers on the left, running count, rounds on the bottom, running count on the left. Okay, so you can see here the running count here, it shows you the numbers here, and as it climbs around 23 here, climbs to positive 6, you can see that player on round 23 fluctuate their wager up to $2,000 here. Okay, and they did the same during the 31, 32, and 33 rounds. Okay, 33 round they dropped their wager back down, but the flow of the betting looks very similar to the flow of the count. Okay, it's a great indicator that this person is tracking the count, or they're using a count system. Okay, round 2, spot 2 and spot 3, flat line across, no wager. Okay, alright, let's go to the exceptions tab here. Now the exceptions tab gives you some more explanation on how all those numbers are generated and calculated. Okay, so there are a lot of exceptions to this software here. Okay, so you have to always remember, for example here, in case where a player has a blackjack versus the dealer's blackjack, it could be a push hand or a win hand for a player. Okay, if this is the case, then you must manually input in P for push or W for win. Okay, so this is adjusting it. So based on your casino's rules, it could be different from other casinos. Okay, where they had those specialty blackjack table where, you know, if the player has a blackjack but the dealer is showing an ace, and if you want to buy insurance or not, if the player wants to buy insurance or they don't, and other and in another case where the player has a blackjack and the dealer has a 10 showing and they don't offer you insurance, they just check. Okay, they'll pay you and they check, or they have specialty ones where you automatically win regardless if the dealer has an ace or a 10. So every casino has different rules. Standard blackjack applies, but they have a lot of bonus blackjack table games with different names and different rules. So you want to use the override in your input here. Okay. And if you, for example, here the dealer has a ace and a 10, and always remember you want to input in the cards in order. Okay, whatever is showing first, you put that there first, and then the card that's revealed. For example, the dealer has up card and then a whole card underneath. Okay, so the second card that you see, you will put that on the second spot. It'll help you track that and understand the play as well. Okay, so the first card that this person on spot 1 received was a 2, and then the second card is a 9, and then if they took a hit card, a 6, then when you look at this, you can understand that the first card was a 2, the second one was a 9, and then they took a 6 for a hit card. Okay, and that becomes much more clear if, say, for example, let's say spot 2 here has a let's say here has a 9, let's say a 7 and a 9, which for a 16. Let's make that even a little spookier here. Okay, they have an 8 and a 9. Okay, for a total of 17, and that's a hard 17, and they decide to take a hit card. Okay, that looks very odd. A lot of the time people don't take that hit card on a hard 17. Okay, and if they took a hit card and they got one of the small cards and it benefited that hand to now a total of 20, this is where you can look at it and say this player is not a normal player. Okay, either they don't know what they're doing, or they know what card is coming up next. Okay, because it's rich in small cards. Because a lot of 10 cards came out. There's less 10 cards in the decks now, or in the shoe, and more than likely a small card is going to come out. Okay, so input the cards correctly in order, and it helps you analyze the player's play strategy as well. Okay, so going back to the exceptions here, you can override the win or loss or push. Okay, there's a bunch of other here. You know, ace ratio is rounded to 0.07. 10 ratios is rounded to 0.30, and so forth. There's a lot here as well. You know, the way this software is played is where it assumes that not all the cards in the shoe will be played. So it's not gonna be played from first card to the end, to the very last card. Okay, the house will cut approximately 1.5 decks off, and they will be burning cards as well as they swap dealers throughout the game. Okay, so roughly about 78 cards will not be in play. That means that the possibilities are about 40 rounds only. Okay, so depending on how many players are on the table as well. Okay, so there's a lot of exceptions here. You can read through it so you'll understand how the application maps out and does the analysis. Okay, how it does the analysis, and you can adjust to it by overriding win, loss, and etc. Okay, so that is the software, and the software's been used at multiple casinos. I don't even know how many casinos still use this software. And one of the thing that motivated me to create this was that originally in a casino that I used to work in surveillance, we purchased something similar to this, but it was extremely expensive. Okay, and they charge you by the license as well, so extremely expensive. And then when I became a director and a manager, I didn't have that budget, so I decided to create something by myself, and this was made, and it's very useful. It's been used in quite a few casinos. I'm not sure if anybody is still using this, but if they have a different system that they're using now. But for in-house, yes, this worked very well. It helped analyze the players, not just advantage players and card counters, but also to explain why a particular player is winning. Is it because the dealer's bust ratio was too high, and that was the reason for that particular table game or blackjack game to lose 20-30 grand that night. Okay, so it helps explain that to upper management. Is usually where they want to know why our table game or this particular blackjack table game lost $20,000-$30,000 this particular night. And that burden is usually pushed over to surveillance, where we have to analyze the video footage to see if anybody's cheating, maybe the cash was stolen, or is it just because the dealer's bust ratio, which is simply too high, and the player's win ratio was extremely high because the dealer keeps on busting their hand. So it helps explain a lot, not just on the card counting side, using the graphs here, okay, but it also helps explain why a table game lost so much money per night as well. The other thing that is really nice about this, and I'll speak a little bit about it before we end this training here, one of my advanced blackjack training covers betting correlation. Okay, if you don't understand what betting correlation is, this is part of the advanced blackjack training module. It's in one of the blackjack training software that I created as well. It explains the betting correlation that is usually done by either just one player or is done by a team play. Okay, where they fluctuate. For example, let's say you have spot 1 and spot 2 here. They're playing together, they're counting, but they understand that surveillance is tracking them. So when the count is high, spot 1 will increase. Spot 2 does the opposite. They'll bet neutral. Okay, so their chart won't match this here. On the second high count here, spot 1 will decrease their wager, while spot 2 will increase their wager. So if you look at that chart there, for example here, when the count increased here, this player increased it, but when this increased it really high, they don't. Their graph drops. Okay, it doesn't follow the count. Same thing like spot 2 here. They decreased it here and increased it here. They only match 1 point of this peak here, and they didn't match the other one. So when surveillance analyze that, you see that they're not really following the count, But if you combine their wagers together as a team, as a team play, their wager are combined together increased it. That's called betting correlation. Okay, I designed that module and explained that module in one of the advanced blackjack training software. Okay, so analyzing more than one table here, you want to be very careful with team play, and that's where the win ratio and the analysis come in handy over here. If you look at the win ratio here, okay, we look at the table analysis here, okay, what we are really concerned about is wagers. Okay, how much money did walked off that table? Okay, so here, this particular shoe that I analyzed here, you see that the player lost $2,850 and they won $2,750. Okay, so they lost more than they walked away with. Okay, so that is something that you want to look at when you're analyzing not just the individual players, but all the player as a whole. Okay, and this is where this win ratio really comes into play. Okay, so for example, something that is very suspicious would be where the player lost $2,000, but they won $20,000 that left the table. Okay, so that's very odd. Okay, if you see that money actually left the table, but when you look at the individual players, their chart, their wagering and their bet fluctuation doesn't match the count at all, but something's going on there. Okay, that's where you have to look and combine the win ratios. Okay, and then if you combine the players betting, then you can see that as a team, the entire table actually won more money than they lost. Okay, so that's something to analyze. Bet correlation is part of the advanced training to analyze blackjack, and this software was mainly developed for the surveillance department and or the card master that does the analysis for table games. So it cuts off a lot of things, the tedious things that the evaluator have to do. You know, all you have to do is just input in the cards and the wager, and the software does everything else for you. You know, it does all the calculations for you automatically. You know, all the win, loss, all the percentages. You know, it charts it all for you to look at. And for upper management, they don't really have time to go through all the datas. What they really want to see is the charts. Okay, it's easy to read, easy to understand, easy to follow. Okay, and a little deeper analysis, then you will use the win ratio. Okay, and the analysis also. Okay, so that is the software, the PlayStation, the BJ Playtracer software. This is developed way back in the early 2000s. Okay, so it's been a long time. It is still being used, I believe, in many casinos. I lost count on how many casinos are using this, but it's extremely effective compared to how we used to do it with the manual print sheet here. Okay, these are downloadable in the website, by the way. So it's a great way to analyze players. It explains a lot. Over the years that I've been in surveillance, I train people how to use this, and also I use it myself, and it saves a lot of time. Running down a player in the old days used to take us hours, with this format here, because we had to manually calculate the percentages, and when we move on to this, is 5 or 10 minutes. We're done. We play the video back on a little faster speed, and we're able to get that analysis out and analyze it and say and understand how why so much money left a particular blackjack game. So that's why this software was designed in the first place. And the second one was the commercial products, where it uses a lot of different count systems. You don't really need to use the other count systems. For example, like the Res 7 count system by Arnold Snyder. You don't really need to use any of that. The main count system is just plus and minus. If you chart Res 7, the chart looks very similar. Okay, the flow of the chart looks very similar. Okay, so the plus count system is a balanced count system. Is the more favorable system. Any count system. Over the years, when I did blackjack card counting training, I always encouraged them, my trainees, that the effective count system that will work best is the one that's easy to use and is very effective to use. Okay, you don't want anything that you have to plus and minus this and then divide it by this. It's too difficult. Too much error can occur. It's not as effective. Okay, plus and minus count system is a balanced system, is an easy system, and is a very effective system. Okay, so other than that, that is the software, and this was mainly designed for the surveillance department or the car master of a casino to analyze blackjack and to determine if many things from the blackjack tables, card counter, ace tracer, tins, shuffle tracking, and betting strategy, and etc. So I hope you enjoyed the training. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me and send you a message to our website. And what we usually do is we combine all the questions together, and then we will create another training video, and then we'll post it so that everybody can reference it back to it. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed the training, and thank you for joining me for this training today. I hope you learned something new, and if you have questions,